Okay, right. This call is now being recorded. So thank you everyone who's arrived to the InterMine Outreachy and Google Summer of Code webinar. So my name is Yo Yehudi. I am the coordinator for Outreachy and for Google Summer of Code, which I will also sometimes call GSoC to abbreviate. But we have a few other mentors from the team as well here, and I see we have a fantastic range of potential interns as well. So this is really exciting. It's lovely to see so many faces here today. So I will start out with a few reminders. First one, if you haven't added your name to the roll call in the HackMD document, please do. It just gives us an idea of who's come along today. And feel free to fill out the icebreaker question, which is just asking your favorite drink. But after that, probably one of the most important things to remember today is that InterMine has a code of conduct. So what that means generally is that we are expecting everyone to treat everyone else with respect and to treat them kindly and to treat people the way that you would like to be treated, quite frankly. I don't say this because there have been any problems, because we haven't had any problems that I'm aware of. I'm just saying this because I want this to be a safe and comfortable space for everyone. If at any point you feel like the code of conduct hasn't been observed properly, either if that is something against yourself or if you witness something against someone else, then the way to report that, you can tell me. My email address is at the top of the HackMD document. If it's something I've done, I sincerely hope it's not. But if it is, then you can also contact Daniela. She's one of my colleagues at InterMine. Or you can even contact anyone else at InterMine or anyone who is one of the mentor team as well. But hopefully we won't need to worry about that today. And also, I will talk a little bit about Zoom etiquette. So we're all using Zoom for the video conference today. And as some of you may have noticed, sometimes when you are on a video conference, someone has a sheep going meh behind them, or a really loud fan, or some traffic that's going burp, burp, burp. So in order to minimize that and to make sure that the speakers can be heard really well, please try and keep your microphone on mute. It also helps if you end up typing for some reason, we don't have to hear tap, tap, tap in the background. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to talk. It just means when you are not talking, please make sure that the microphone is on mute, and then unmute yourself when you wish to talk. And 5 points to the first person who accidentally tries to talk whilst on mute. We will point it out if we notice. So, oh yeah, the other thing is that if you have comments or questions, so we will invite questions at various points throughout the talk. You'll say, if anyone has any comments, please speak up now. You don't have to speak verbally if you would rather not. So you can also use, there's a raise hand functionality in Zoom. You can try raising your hand on video, but I can't always guarantee I'll spot that if I'm looking at the agenda document. Or you can just add questions right in the HackMD as well. And if at any point we don't spot them, please just poke me as needed until we find it. Oh, Sugita says, not quite sure how to add my name on the attendees list. I think somewhere on the HackMD, do you see a pencil on the top left roughly? That should allow you to edit the document. Or there's also, in between the pencil and the eye, there's a sort of side-by-side view icon. And that allows you to see both the code to edit it and the formatted version. Does that make sense? Oh, you've got it. Fantastic. Okay, if anyone else is having any trouble, please do let us know. Okay, I think that was all the housekeeping I had. So what's next? Oh, by the way, if we've run out of bullet points for the icebreaker question, we can add more bullets. Bullets are free. Okay, so I'm going to now talk a little bit about InterMine and just talk about who we are, what we do, so that you have a bit of an idea what the sorts of projects that you might be working on. So I've worked for InterMine for about 4.5 years now. And what we do is, I'll give you the complicated version and I'll break it down. We're a biological data warehouse. That wouldn't mean much to me if I hadn't worked in it for several years. So practically speaking, what it means is that when scientists produce data from experiments, so you might think of them sitting in the lab with lab coats, often we'll end up with information about different things, biological things like genes and proteins. And what InterMine does is it stores that information and it integrates different data sets from different experiments, and it makes it easy for scientists to query that data. So as a scientist, I might say I'm doing an experiment and I have 7 genes that I'm interested in, and I can go and look those up on different InterMines to get information about it. And so InterMine is the open source software that we create. But people around the world run different instances of InterMine. So for example, in Cambridge, we run FlyMine, which is for Drosophila. They're tiny, tiny fruit flies that are very popular in science. And we also run HumanMine, which has data about, unsurprisingly, about humans. But then all around the world, in Japan and the United States and in France, different research organizations take their own data for their own organisms and they put it in an instance of InterMine. And one of the nice things about using InterMine is that you could write a query. Let's say I want to get some information about certain genes in a mouse. But once you've written the code for that, you could copy and paste it and go and run that code and then learn the same thing for a rat or for a human or for a fly. So InterMine makes things very interoperable as well. And InterMine has a web interface. We may at some points call this the Java or JSP pages. This is an older interface. It's basically the website where people can run queries. So if you go to flymine.org or humanmine.org, then you can see the older interface. It has web services, which means that people who are scientists but also write code can then run queries using code. That could be in Python, R, Clojure and ClojureScript, JavaScript, Perl, Ruby, Java. So we've got 7 different client languages that we can make it easy to query from. But also, if you are a programmer, which I suspect many of you, if not all of you are, then you may wish to use our web services as well. Let me think. Oh yes, right. And as well as the old interface that you see at the minute on FlyMine and HumanMine and all the other InterMines, we have a new user interface that we have been trying to get out for a little while, and we are in the nearly final stages of preparing it, and that's called Blue Jeans. And so some of you have probably seen us referring to Blue Jeans because some of the projects are around Blue Jeans. And the main reason that we're replacing the old pages with Blue Jeans is that the old pages tend to use quite old software development behavior. So not a lot of people run Java server pages, JSPs, which is what the old user interface is. This is a client-side driven, what's the word? So Blue Jeans is client-side driven, which is a more modern, popular paradigm these days. And if at any point that was too techy and it didn't make a lot of sense, please ask me as many questions as you need to make that make sense. I do apologize. And so I'm not trying to go over anyone's head here, and it's definitely not my intent at any point. Oh yeah, and who are we? Where are we? So we're based at the University of Cambridge primarily. Or rather, the core team is. So we actually have, I think, 4 or 5 software developers who work in the University of Cambridge full time. Although right now I think we're actually working from our homes primarily because of certain virus issues. And we also have a half-time biologist. Most of us, since we're software developers, we've worked in biology for a while, and we know a little bit about genes and a little bit about proteins, but we're computer people, and every now and then someone will say something biology-ish to me and I'll be like, I think I need help. So don't feel bad if that's the case at any point here. If you're like, I do not understand what on earth a gene has to do with a protein, that's fine. We understand because we've all been there as well. So it's absolutely okay to ask biological questions, just like it's okay to ask technology questions, and we will do our best to help you out with those. And then outside of the Cambridge office, there's around 30 different InterMines around the world. Like I mentioned, those actually aren't run by us, but we try and keep people involved as part of the community. trying to think if there's anything else. Oh my goodness, I nearly forgot. We have lots of mentors here. Our mentors are people who have either been involved in the community, maybe through one of the InterMines, or people who have done Google Summer of Code in previous years and have come back for more because they are that amazing. So I'm gonna say, who do I see? I see Nikhil here. Hey Nikhil, thank you for being one of our mentors.
Hi everyone.
Do we have any other mentors here? Okay, it looks like it's only me. That's fine. But without our mentors, InterMine would not go. So big shout out for them. They're amazing. Okay, right. Let me see. So does anyone have any questions at this point about InterMine or about BlueJeans, just about how they work or where things sit in relation to one another? Yeah, and so it's fine to unmute or to type your question. I'm sorry to hear, Roshni, I'm sorry to hear that you are having internet problems. And Sakshi, so why is it named InterMine? So actually, it kind of comes from data mining. So originally, I think 2002, my boss decided it was too hard to get biological data. Let's fix this. And he said, let's do data mining for flies. And so we made FlyMine. And then at some point we said, why are we doing it just for flies? And so we made it generic. And so we couldn't really call it FlyMine anymore. And we thought it needs to be interoperable. So it became InterMine. I'll just check the document if there's any questions. Not in the InterMine section yet. Okay, well, it's fine to add questions later or get to add them in the chat or to unmute as you wish. If I miss any, just make sure to poke me. And Nikhil's doing a great job of monitoring the chat as well, so I'm sure he'll highlight if I miss any that he sees. Okay, right, just a second. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about application period etiquette, just in general. So this is the 4th year that we have participated. Yep. Right, Roshni. So it's collaborative, like open for all to add information to the site. So not really, no. So InterMine tends to be curated data. So that means scientists tend to look at data sources that are available, choose which ones to put in, and then put them in. I don't know if you can hear my kitty cat, but he's telling me that he needs food. We can ignore him. Yes, InterMine actually, it can take quite a long time for the data to build because we sometimes have data sets that are in large megabytes or gigabytes even, or maybe even more of data. And so depending on the amount of data you put in, it could take hours. I think the biggest InterMines maybe take over a week. Just because there is so much data. I mean, you hear people talk about the phrase big data. Sometimes we end up with a lot of stuff that is going into the InterMines. So it means that it's read-only. So we build the data set, and then afterwards it doesn't change until the next build. So you don't tend to add, just a bit of data here or a bit of data there. That said, I think one of the InterMines, TetraMine, which is for Tetrahymena, which is a microorganism with, I think it has like 8 or 12 biological sexes, which is kind of cool. I think TetraMine does have community curated contributions, but it would still work the same, that they do a data build and then it sits like that for however many weeks or months until they update it again. Okay, right, I'm going to assume there's no more questions. Right, application period, process etiquette. So all of you have come here because you've been in chat. I just want to say, first of all, thank you. I am loving the friendly and collaborative atmosphere that we're seeing in the chat. It is really, really rewarding to see. I just want to encourage that a bit further. So one thing that we're looking out for when we're recruiting is we're looking for people who are really good to work with. So that means that if we notice that you are able to help other people out and respond in a friendly manner, that's a really good thing. So I guess we're trying to go less in the spirit of competitiveness and keep everything secret so that I can save it for me, and more of that we want to see that there's the friendly sharing and helping out, which I guess makes sense in an open source project, hopefully. So some mentors don't really use chat that much. You probably have figured out which ones yet at this point. So for example, Daniela's projects, she definitely prefers to use email for questions. If you are emailing your mentors, make sure to always email all of the mentors that are listed for that project. That just means that it saves us time, so we don't have to communicate between us and find that maybe we've been giving you the same answers twice. And you're not bugging us, it's okay. Please don't feel bad, you're not bugging us. Let me see, I've already said helping each other in chat is strongly encouraged. Oh yes, and another note is working hours. So we vaguely observe roughly 9 to 5 UK time in the office. As we work as academics, and one thing that I can say for sure about academics is that their office hours are all over the place. So sometimes we'll be in earlier and sometimes we'll be in later. But if it's weekend time, there's a pretty good chance we won't be able to respond. Likewise, if it's evening time or night time. We will do our best to respond when we are in the office, or when we're working from home because we're not in the office because of the pandemic. But just please be understanding. Just like we're trying not to work in the evenings and the weekends, we don't particularly want you to have to feel like you have to work in the evenings or weekends either. So it might be frustrating sometimes, but at the same time, we're also trying to not give you unreasonable expectations. And Muskan, what if mentors of some project become unresponsive? So there's something that could happen. It's probably not happening intentionally. So I am 100% sure I've missed queries in the chat, for example. And that is mostly because things are massively busy. If you're worried that someone should be responding and isn't, you can always please message me, direct message me, or any of the other mentors. Like I've said, I am very busy, so I am very happy to be reminded of stuff. I can take a task and then I'll go 5 minutes later, I'll realize I've responded to someone else's chat and I may have forgotten yours. And that is never intentional. I'm just being very absent-minded, and I do apologize. But yeah, if someone else isn't responding and you don't feel comfortable approaching them, please approach me. If I'm not responding, please approach any of the other mentors. I'm sure they will just say she's just missed you. But anyway, approach other mentors if there's any problem with me. Nikhil?
There's one question more above the Muskan's questions.
Oh, good catch. I have a question about the InterMine Outreachy application. It's different from the GSoC program. I'm not quite sure what you mean there, Johan. And did I say your name? I can't remember if I said your name right or not.
Yes, it's okay. My name is Johanna, but I like more call me Joha.
My name's Johanna, so I'm loving it.
Okay.
I just go by Yo very often. So could you explain the question? I didn't quite understand, sorry.
Okay, but I don't understand what this program is the same or is or working difference or okay. The Outreach is the application for internship, but I don't understand the Google Summer Coding Program. I think is the same or is different or working different. I don't know.
That's a really great question. I will give a brief overview of both because I don't know what backgrounds everyone who's here is approaching from. So Outreachy is a 3-month mentorship program designed to get people who are underrepresented or discriminated against in tech to get experience in open source. Google Summer of Code runs over the same period of time when it's this round of Outreachy, because Outreachy runs twice a year. So in the Northern Hemisphere summer, there's also Google Summer of Code. Google Summer of Code is also about 3 months. It's coding, but it's only open to students. And that's regardless of whether they're underrepresented in their backgrounds or not. In terms of the things that are done, they are basically the same. So Google Summer of Code, people come, they code for 3 months, and then you're done. In Outreachy, the only real difference is that you don't have to do code. So Outreachy also permits projects such as UX or design or documentation projects, which is something that wouldn't be permissible in Google Summer of Code. But I guess the code in Google Summer of Code kind of gives that one away. In terms of the applications, they are a little bit different. So Google Summer of Code, you are required to write up a project proposal, and then you submit that as a PDF before the application period finishes, and then you're judged based on the project proposal. Whereas when you're applying for Outreachy, anyone who is currently here has already successfully gotten through the first round. But through the second round, when you're applying to specific organizations, what you do is you make contributions. So that would be a GitHub pull request, maybe. I mean, in terms of InterMine, it's probably going to be that, or it could be that you're making issues, or it might even be that we ask you to do some, what's the word? Pull request reviews as well. And each time that you help us out a little bit, you can record that contribution on Outreachy and say, this is a contribution that I've made to this organization. And then when you actually make your Outreachy application, we ask, I think, 4 questions. And one of those questions is a bit longer than the others because we're asking for a timeline. In total, the application, the 4 questions, including the timeline that you answer for Outreachy, can be very, very similar to a Google Summer of Code. Can be very similar to a Google Summer of Code project proposal. And in fact, I would actually encourage that, because what you want to do when you are doing your Outreachy application is you want to convince your mentor that you are capable of doing what has been done and that you've thought through what needs to be done, broken it down into small tasks, that you've considered what tools you might need to use. If it's a code project, what libraries you might need to use. If it's UX, you might have mock-ups, for example, or you might have an interview plan. I see Roshni saying, how do the design projects get counted under a contribution? So I would say in the UX and UI design project, we have a nice GitHub thread where people have been making some fantastic comments talking about how they might go about this. I would count every single issue comment that people have written as a contribution. So you've seriously thought about things, you've written it up, you've posted it on GitHub. That's a contribution in my books. So basically, think of times that you have spent time and spent effort. Make sure it's documented in some way, like ideally on a GitHub repository, whether that be on the issue, whether it be a pull request or something else. So I don't think she's here, but one contributor, she actually wrote a tutorial up on WordPress. That's not on our GitHubs, but it's a very clear contribution that she can write up and she can link to. And all she did was she had screenshots and then saying, so the next step is install npm and here's how you do it. And then the next step is this, and then another screenshot. And that's a contribution as well. Does that help? Oh, one other thought as well with regards to design projects for contributions is definitely go and look at the sample project from Deepashri. So she did a redesign for the Open Bioinformatics Foundation website. And we had 3 issues on GitHub where they're actually closed now because this is a complete project. But you can see all of the interns interacting with one another and suggesting different logos and suggesting different designs. And it provides a really good example that all of these things were contributions. So definitely go and have a look at that. Have a look at that application. It is further down in the document, or I posted it in chat. Okay. Any more questions just in general about the applications? Oh, I can see Roshni hand up. Oh, one moment.
Can you name the application again?
Oh, Deepashri's application. I'm going to go.
I am clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so could you just comment over there on the chat?
Yes, that would be fine. Oh, thank you so much, Nikhil. You're a hero.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm getting some fantastic background music from someone.
I think it's me. I'll mute myself.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Yep, that's gone. Thank you, Nikhil. Okay, let me see. So I'll move on from because we've talked about contributions and pull requests. All right, okay. So with regards to contributions, another note is that you do not have to do hundreds of them. In fact, in some ways, I'll be grateful if you don't. The reason for that is whilst we love contributions, they are amazing, but we are swamped at the minute. So please do 1, 2, maybe even 3. And at that point, if you've taken up a ticket, maybe think about helping someone else out or making more tickets if you can. If we've watched you, if we've seen your code and we feel that you are capable of reviewing, we may ask you to help do review of other people's issues. But we also know that you probably have a life. You may have school, or you may have kids, or you may have work. And we don't want you to be spending all of your time sweating for an internship that you aren't guaranteed to get at this point. That's not fair. Especially when we consider the fact that Outreachy, for example, is designed to be for underrepresented people who may not necessarily have as much free time as everyone else may have. So please don't feel like you have to spend all of your time InterMining. We love your contributions and we will love every single one that you make, but you don't have to make millions of them. Let me see. Oh yes, the next note, following on from this, if you make a pull request or a comment, we may take time to review it, especially once, at the moment, I think my focus is finding stuff for people to do and answering questions. Reviewing pull requests also can take a lot of time and effort, so we aren't ignoring you if we take a long time to respond to them. It's probably just that we have a lot of interns at the moment, and I'm very sorry that we can't always give each pull request the love that it probably deserves, to be honest, but please do be patient. I will say, if you have a question about an issue, or if you have a question like an email that we haven't answered, please ping us. If it's been a day or two and we haven't answered, definitely remind us again. Pull requests give us a little bit longer because we are going to take longer to review those, and we really appreciate your patience. Thank you so much. And Yoha says, for the Outreachy application, I can contribute to any issues presented in the problem finder table. No, just, yeah, everything. Literally anything, because part of the reason for recording the contributions is so that we know that you have the skills that we want to see in the application. So maybe if you are going to be doing a graphic design task, don't only do code problems, because that wouldn't then show that you're a great graphic designer. But if you're doing JavaScript and then you apply for a Java project, I don't think there are any Java, yeah, there are some Java projects, then you probably still are proving that you know how to code. So if you can do something on the right project, do. If you can't, don't sweat it too much. But the other side of why these contributions are relevant in the right project is to get familiar with those projects. And maybe you can get familiar even if you don't necessarily do an issue. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to add there. I think that's the main thing. So it's okay if you contribute a few things across the board, basically, but make sure that you get very familiar with the project that you are working on, or if it's not a project that exists yet, make sure that you plan carefully and think about how you would do this project once it starts. Okay. What else do we have next? Right, we have some hints for a successful application. So don't want to just read this, that'll get boring, but the most important thing is to understand what problem we're trying to solve. Yeah, so I think that's a really good point, is that make sure that you understand what we're trying to do with each project, and try and repeat that back to us. And if you're repeating the right things, we know that you've understood what the project requires. Ask lots of questions. We love questions. We are not going to be annoyed if you ask questions. We might be a little bit slow if we have a lot going on, but we will always do our best to answer questions. If you ask them in public forums, so if you ask them in the chat, other people may be able to help you out, which is fantastic. But if you don't feel comfortable asking in public, it's okay to ask in private as well. So also think about your timelines. So this is something that whether you're doing Google Summer of Code or whether you are doing Outreachy, you need to think about what you're going to do. So you've got 12 or so weeks that you are going to be working on this, and think, how am I going to break this down if I work on this? So start with the easy stuff, the stuff that gets things going, and then sort of break it down. Make sure that you have things broken down to like 1 or 2 weeks. So say week 1 and week 2, I'll do this. Week 3, I'll do this. Then weeks 4 and 5, I'll do so, and so on. One recommendation I think that I really like to see is leave a week here or there. Say, this is time in case I'm running out of time. So if week 7 doesn't go as planned, I've left week 8 so that I can run a little bit late if needed, for example. The other side of that is that you can also include bonus tasks. So getting a good idea of what you realistically think you can do in the period of an internship, and then say, but if I happen to run fast, I'm going to do A and B and C. So these are things that I will do to make sure that my time is full, even if if the task is easier than anticipated. So I see another question in chat. What is the InterMine registry? Is it going to be linked into BlueJeans in some way? That's a good question. So do you remember I mentioned InterMine, there's about 30 something of them around the world. So it used to be when we had, 5 or 6 or 7, if we wanted to link between one InterMine and another, we'd just hard code it and we'd put the URL for HumanMine into FlyMine. As we got more and more InterMines, that got very messy, because one InterMine would go down, or they'd change their URL to HTTPS, or they'd change the URL completely. And so then suddenly you had to update 30 InterMines with that hard-coded URL. And I just had a window pop up blocking my agenda. That's not, there we go. Okay, so the InterMine registry, what that does is it's a programmatic way of fetching the different InterMines. So if you go to registry.intermine.org, you can see a list of the InterMines that we have, but as well as the user interface, it also has an API so that a programmer can go to it and then they can fetch a list of the InterMines. And it is involved in BlueJeans already. So if you're using BlueJeans, then on the top right, there is a cog, a little settings icon, I believe. If you click on that, then you can see a list of InterMines, and that is fetched dynamically from the InterMine registry. It doesn't show all of the InterMines, it only shows the ones that are a reasonably up-to-date version. But that's something that may be useful in many projects. I suspect there'll be times when you'll want sample data and you might be sick of flies, so you'll go to YesMine, or you'll go to WheatMine, or it may be that you programmatically need to access it as well. Okay, looking back, I'm going to talk a bit about submitting applications. So I don't have the deadlines for applications handy at the moment, but it's time to start thinking about preparing your application, and whether it's Outreachy or whether it is Google Summer of Code. So I sort of mentioned thinking through the timeline and making sure that you're happy with that and that you can break it down. Once you've written that down, show a draft to your mentors, because they can comment, they may have ideas, they may say, I think you're being a bit ambitious there, or they may say, yes, this is perfect, or maybe you need to add some more. but do that soon, because if you have a chance to iterate, if you get feedback and then you adjust it, it's probably going to be a much better application than if you just submit it in the last minute and pray. The other thing is that we are not likely to be able to offer feedback at the last minute. So if you do it in the next week or two, there's probably plenty of time. If you do it the day before the applications are due to close, if we have 7 people do that, we might not have time to review all of the applications. So start it early. So we have a proposal template a bit further down the docs. We have one that we suggest for Google Summer of Code. I see nothing wrong with Outreachy applicants using that, because it will help you structure and think about how you would prepare your project plan anyway. But Outreachy doesn't allow you to upload PDFs or anything like that. So you'd need to have links, for example, to maybe to a repository or to some mock-ups or anything you might have. You'd have to put links into the Outreachy site rather than uploading a PDF. Thank you, Nikhil. So the application period is March 16 to 31 for a Google Summer of Code. So that means applications actually open in 3 days, and then there's about 2 weeks for the actual proposal submissions. So yeah, it's definitely time to start thinking about it. I'm sure Outreachy will be something similar. Okay, submitting applications. Oh yeah, so if you scroll down to the submitting applications section on the HackMD document, we have 2 proposals. One is a Google Summer of Code proposal that was accepted in 2018. That was from Nupur Gunwant. She did work on the InterMine Python client in 2018, and then she actually worked physically in our office in 2019 as an intern as well. And then we have Deepashri's Outreachy application for the Open Bioinformatics Foundation as well. I mentioned that one earlier. So that's also a good example for the design tasks, whereas the GSoC one is a better example for code-specific tasks. If you're wondering how we are going to think about your applications and grade and how we decide who is most suitable, we actually have grading criteria available online for everybody to look at. So take a look at that. It says GSoC, it also means Outreachy. That is on my head for not updating it yet. But it should apply equally. So it just talks about the sort of skills that we're looking for in an intern. And it helps you tailor your application so that you think that you're addressing the things that we're looking for as well. Let me think. Okay, so some Google specific notes. That you can't submit more than 3 applications. So that means that you might want to submit to another organization as well as us if you have time. What I will add is that whether you're GSoC or whether you're Outreachy, don't do more than you have time for. So one application that is well done is going to be a lot better use of your time than 2 applications where you've only had a little bit of time to put into them. That said, I have seen students who have submitted 2 fantastic different applications. I suspect they may have been very lucky to have that time. And if you don't have it, don't try and force it. And Muskan asks, how do you select 3 interns on 9 projects in Outreachy? It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be really tough, and it's probably going to be emotionally more tough for the interns than it is for us, and it destroys me. So there's a few rays of hope. So I will say, if you are a student and you're eligible to apply for Google Summer of Code, and it's one of the 3 that is in the Google Summer of Code listing, then apply for both. Because that makes it a little bit easier for us to get more seats, if that makes sense, because we might be able to choose you for GSoC, or we might be able to choose you for Outreachy. If you're not a student, or if it's not one of those 3 projects, it'll mostly come down to choosing who we feel can get the job done really well and who can benefit from it. I know that's hard to define, but until applications come in, you never know what's going to happen. can someone submit an application in GSoC as well as Outreachy? Yeah, please do. If you can, definitely do that. It would just mean that if we have some good Outreachy people who can't apply to GSoC, then maybe we can choose you through GSoC and that way get more people. The other tiny ray of hope, and we can't count on this at all, but sometimes Outreachy can help fund an extra position. So we have funding for 3 Outreachy positions. If we're really lucky, we may be able to get an extra one through Outreachy without having to provide extra funds. But that's not a guarantee, that's only a hope. If I knew anywhere to find more money to get more seats, I would be there. I would be begging, because I love this time of year to pieces, and I love working with interns. Unfortunately, we've got to work with the resources we have, but we are doing our best to make them stretch as far as we can. Let me see where we are in the notes. Yeah, oh, one other very good note is that if you notice an application has fewer, a project has fewer applications, that might be a good one to consider applying for. Obviously, you probably only want to do that if your skill set is coincides with that project. But if it might be easier if you apply to a project that actually only has 3 people applying as opposed to 15. Right now, everything seems pretty busy. I'm not sure if I have any good idea of what's hot at the minute. Maybe we should do a poll or something. Let's see what everyone's interested in. I might see if we can do that. See if we can get a poll so we can just see what's most popular. Okay, I have questions. How do I write a proposal in Outreachy? So I will just point you back at the moment. Take a look at Dipashri's application. I'm gonna go back and just label that. Where is, because I keep on referring to her by name, but it doesn't actually say name. From Dipashri. Take a look at that. Maybe structure your application similarly. And also take a look at the GSoC template that we have to give you an idea of the types of things that we're looking for. Once you've read through both of those, come back to me and we can talk more about how you're feeling and what you're interested in, what you'd like to do, and how to take that proposal forward, or speak to your mentors. Either is fine. Okay, I'm just going to open it up to some more general questions and answers. So that's, if you scroll quite a way down, we have general questions and answers. We also have one from Divyanshu already, asking what will be the criteria of choosing between Outreachy applicants and GSoC applicants applying for the same project? Is it possible whether 2 interns from both programs work on the same project? Technically, maybe there's one scenario where that could happen, and I don't think it will. So in most scenarios, we want 1 intern because it's one project and it's probably going to be messy if multiple people work on the same thing. So if we want to do the UX review, there's probably not enough room to have 2 people doing UX review. The one scenario that might be possible, just might be possible, is the JavaScript data visualizations, because the JavaScript data visualization project is about making lots of small data visualizations, and so if we had 30, theoretically 1 intern could take some of them, another intern could take some of them, and they probably still wouldn't all be done. Realistically though, we have enough other projects that we want to get done that I doubt we would use so many of our valuable slots to have 2 on the same thing. Yeah, it's going to be a very, very tough time. We have to come down to deciding amongst you all. We're not there yet. Let's just focus on making some really great applications. Does anyone else have any other questions at the moment you would like to ask? You're welcome, Divyanshu. So it's also okay to type in the chat or to type in the document. Okay, right. Echo. In that case, if you have any more questions, add them later. Just make sure we don't miss them. So I will move on to specific project questions and answers. What's the time? Goodness me, I've been talking for 50 minutes. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, Angel, I see your note. I will speak to you later about that, okay? So let me see. I don't know if we have time to talk about each of the projects. I'm not just going to give an overview of each of them. I think just answering questions is probably sufficient. So I don't know if you want to have a look through the project Q&A. If you have questions about a specific project, please type them in there, and I will just go back and forth depending on who has asked those questions. Right now I see one from Sakshi. What different types of visualizations are required to be built in the internship period? When will we get details of it? Yeah, that would be helpful, knowing what you need to do. So we have a partial list somewhere. I think what we need to do is we need to compare what has already been done with what hasn't been done and make sure that we have a list. I sent out an email to the InterMine developers group a couple of days ago saying, hey everyone, tell us what visualizations you want. And I don't know if I got any answers, but it also could be just that there's a lot in my inbox. So I will double check that, but I will promise that by the end of Monday, we will have some sort of list for you. And if I don't by early Monday, please start throwing things at me. That needs to happen. That is very important. Thank you for raising that. And Sugita asks, are there use cases defined with a link? Oh, okay. End-to-end integration testing with Cypress. I did not realize you were still waiting for use cases. Okay, this is another one on the Yo to-do list. There should be use cases. There aren't any yet? Uh-oh. Okay, we will make sure you have use cases. I know that somewhere I made an Excel spreadsheet that talks about different use cases for testing that we want to test. So it does exist. I will make sure it reaches you. Okay, anyone want to unmute? Anything else you'd like to ask? It doesn't have to be about anything in particular. It could just be, I'm a bit nervous and I don't know how to start.
Hi, you.
Hey.
So you can pronounce my name as Adetun.
Adetun.
Yeah, nice.
Beautiful.
So I tried to look at what you have on InterMine on Saturday. Everywhere was just kind of like mumbo jumbo. I didn't know where to start or where all of this is gonna lead, and I've not like been online. But I've been getting notification, and as much as I feel like, I don't know, I might not be able to get into the program. I mean, I just must commend your efforts. You've been really supportive. I love the way you've been managing issues and trying to make sure everybody's, everybody's fine. So good job you're doing. Yeah, I just want to say that. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. You've just made my heart explode. Thank you so much. That's really sweet. Thank you so much. Okay, I know a request for more issues for the training portal. We'll see what we can do. Anyone else? Any questions, comments? I don't see anything else in the doc, and I really hope that I haven't missed anything. Is there anything I've missed, by the way? Please speak up if I have. All right, I think in that case, it's been lovely to have you all here. Thank you so much for so many good questions. Well done, everyone who's pointed out where we've forgotten to say things we needed to say, like, here's what to do. And keep on being awesome to everyone. And thank you so much. And you know where to find me if you have questions. And Angel, I will speak to you in a minute, okay? All right, so I'm going to end the call. Bye, everyone. It was so lovely hearing from you.
Bye-bye.